Somewhere in Japan, right now, you could buy a house for less than the price of a nice dinner. Not a shed, not a ruin, a full, standing house with rooms and a roof and a garden. In some cases, you don't even have to pay for it at all. Local governments will simply give it to you. That should sound like a dream. In Japan, it's becoming a quiet emergency. Across the country, millions of houses are sitting empty. Not for sale in the normal sense, not waiting for the right buyer at the right price. Simply empty, year after year, slowly falling apart, while almost nobody outside Japan even knows this is happening. To understand why that's strange, you have to understand something most people never think about. In most of the world, a house is something that gains value over time. In Japan, for decades, it's worked the opposite way. A newly built home here is often treated less like an investment and more like a car. The moment you move in, the clock starts. Within 20 or 30 years, in the eyes of the market, that house is often considered close to worthless. The land underneath it, though, that's a different story. The land can still hold real value. The building on top of it, increasingly, does not. So imagine you're the adult child of parents who lived in a quiet town, hours from Tokyo. They pass away, and you inherit their house. You don't want to move there. Your job, your family, your entire life is somewhere else. But now you own a building that's difficult to sell, expensive to maintain, and, in the eyes of the market, worth very little. And here's the twist almost nobody expects.
Tearing it down might actually cost you money you don't want to spend. And in many cases, keeping a small structure standing, even unused, can quietly reduce your property tax bill compared to clearing the land completely. So what do millions of families quietly do instead? Nothing. They keep the house. They visit occasionally, if at all. They let it sit. And multiplied across the entire country, that single, understandable decision becomes something enormous. This is how a modern, wealthy, meticulously organized country ends up with an entire hidden landscape of empty homes, not because of one single crisis, but because of millions of small, ordinary, deeply human decisions made one family at a time. Drive far enough outside any major Japanese city, and you'll start to see it for yourself. Shuttered storefronts, gardens overtaken by weeds, faded curtains still hanging in windows nobody has opened in years. These aren't abandoned because people fled some disaster. They're abandoned because the people who once lived there grew old, and the people who inherited their homes built different lives somewhere else entirely. And behind every one of these houses is the same quiet, unresolved question. What do you do with a home nobody in your family wants to live in, but nobody wants to be the one to let go of either? Some local governments decided they weren't going to wait for an answer. In towns facing shrinking populations, officials began listing these empty houses in something now known as an Akiya Bank, an official registry of vacant homes available to anyone willing to take them on. Some of these listings ask for a modest price. Others ask for almost nothing at all. And in the right circumstances, a handful ask for literally nothing, as long as the new owner agrees to actually live there and take care of the place. It sounds almost too simple. A free house in exchange for simply showing up. But free doesn't mean without cost. Many of these houses need extensive renovation. Some require new plumbing, new wiring, structural repairs that can cost far more than the house itself would ever have sold for. The town isn't really giving away a house. It's gambling on a person, hoping that person will bring something the town has been quietly losing for years. Someone new, someone willing to stay. And surprisingly, some people are saying yes. A young family from Tokyo, tired of paying rent for a cramped apartment, sees an opportunity to own something larger, in a quieter place, for a fraction of what a comparable space would cost in the city. A craftsperson spends months carefully restoring the original wooden beams of a 100-year-old farmhouse, uncovering architecture that would be nearly impossible to build from scratch today. Even people from outside Japan have started documenting their own Akiya renovation projects, drawn by both the challenge and the almost unbelievable idea of turning an abandoned Japanese house into a home of their own. Every one of these stories starts the same way. Someone standing in front of a quiet, neglected building, trying to imagine what it could become. But for every Akia that finds a new owner, there are countless more that don't. Houses too remote, too damaged, or simply too far from anyone's plans to ever be rescued. Walk through some of these towns, and the empty houses start to feel less like isolated stories and more like a pattern.
A street with 3 occupied homes and 5 quiet ones. A shop that used to serve a full neighborhood, now serving the handful of elderly residents left. This is what population decline actually looks like up close. Not headlines, not statistics, just ordinary houses standing exactly where they've always stood, slowly losing the people who once filled them. And that's what makes this story different from most conversations about Japan. It isn't really about houses at all. It's about a country quietly working out what happens when a family's most personal decision, what to do with a childhood home, repeats itself millions of times until it reshapes the physical landscape of entire regions. Some of those houses will eventually be demolished. Some will sit empty for another decade and another after that. And some, thanks to a stranger willing to take a chance, will get a second life nobody expected. The next time you hear that you can buy a house in Japan for almost nothing, you'll know it isn't really about the price. It's about everything that had to happen, quietly, over decades, for that door to be standing open in the first place.